So this is probably going to be one of the less technical discussions that we have on this channel, but by the same token, it's probably also going to be one of the most important, as it basically talks about me, my past, and why I chose to adopt Linux and open source software as a major part of my life. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Michael Kornblum. I'm an independent web developer, writer, and volunteer instructor. I also was born with cerebral palsy. Now, what exactly is cerebral palsy? According to our friends at the Center for Disease Control, cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. CP is the most common motor disability in childhood. Cerebral means having to do with the brain. Palsy means weakness or problems using the muscles. CP is caused by abnormal brain development or damage to the developing brain that affects a person's ability to control his or her muscles. Now, in my case, it was damage that brought on the cerebral palsy. My mother had me at a very older age. She had me in her 40s. I was a premature child. I was a breech birth. The obstetrician mishandled the delivery, resulting in oxygen deprivation, and therefore resulting in brain damage. Now, with this being said, okay, the preferred mode of treatment for those with cerebral palsy was institutionalization. Many doctors advised my parents just to basically lock me away in an institution, throw away the key. You know, out of sight, out of mind. And in the 1970s, that's was pretty much the predominant mindset for a lot of neurologists in the field. And nobody really knew about these institutions. These institutions were kind of like a black box. The first person to expose what went on in these institutions was, in 1972, Geraldo Rivera in an expose on the Willowbrook State School in Staten Island, New York. In this expose, Rivera basically depicted these institutions as darkened places where individuals of disability who were disabled would basically sit in the dark with no human interaction, in their own feces, contracting diseases, starving to death, and basically in very inhumane treatment. And I don't know if my parents saw the Rivera expose on Willowbrook, but, for some reason or another, they decided to go against the conventional wisdom of these neurologists and went to this institute in Pennsylvania called the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential. The institute was run by a Dr. Glenn Doman, and Doman's belief here can pretty much be outlined on this page. I'm going to read a little bit from it. It says, "The good news is that the brain has tremendous plasticity. It can recover, it can get better. It is only hurt. Brain injured children are hurt, not damaged, not diseased. They are hurt." Doman's treatment of children who are hurt basically was a very regimented, battery of exercises, both physical and mental. On the physical side, I remember creeping, crawling, swinging from monkey bars, hanging upside down, walking, running, you know, basically very extended and strenuous ranges of movement. This was often called patterning. On the mental side, I would be shown a bunch of dots on a flashcard and had to count them. Memorized the names of plants, animals, the names of flags, minerals. You know, was taught to read at an accelerated level. This regimen of exercises occurred 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, both my parents worked full time. My father was beginning his career in real estate. My mother was a registered nurse. So, in order to keep up a 56-hour-a-week regimen, my parents went to the community and tried to get volunteers. And I remember my early childhood being exposed to these beautiful human beings who were focusing on making me better. And these people came from different races, different ages, different religions, different ethnicities, different walks of life. But they all basically were bound by the one common goal of putting me back together. And for starters, I would like to thank them for, their efforts, because literally, if it had not been for their efforts, I would not have been here today. But although that brings me joy, let's talk about what happened afterwards. Because during my early childhood, I was surrounded by people who loved me and wanted me to succeed and thrive in this world. But once I got out into the real world, that really was not as much of the case. My parents still gave me a strong sense of self that I still carry to this day. My peers were not that generous. Because my parents had to go public to basically get these volunteers, I also would have to deal with the cruelty of people who would say that God intended me to convalesce for the rest of my life. I had to deal with being teased by my peers, being branded this slow and fat and retarded kid. And it really wasn't until my late teens until I really established that full sense of self that basically allowed me to say, Michael, you're okay. And at that time, I realized that if I was going to create an environment for myself and those people I cared about, it was going to be a world that was not going to have those kind of gatekeepers who basically turned away anything that they did not deem as normal. As a result of which, I cannot see myself hating anyone of a different race, a different gender identity, a different sexual preference, a different race, a different religion, a different socioeconomic background, even somebody of a different political leaning. I cannot bring myself to hate them. And I didn't know that others really felt that way until I started looking at the open source community. This was back in 2005 when I went to a technical college in San Diego, California, and first discovered Linux and open source software, in which individuals from different demographics and different walks of life basically banded together to basically solve a problem that was bigger than themselves, which was creating an open operating system such as Linux. And this whole concept of the openness and coupled with the technology, that totally fired off my imagination. And I wanted to be part of it. So basically, in essence, the Linux lifestyle is my contribution both to free and open source software as well as diversity in tech. Everyone here is welcome. And I'm glad you're here because I want to show you the love that I myself was shown during my childhood. And I want you to learn this technology to improve, your general quality of life. Anyway, in the next video, I'm going to be taking you step by step through an installation of Linux on PC hardware as well as a virtual machine. For the Linux lifestyle, my name is Michael Kornblum. I welcome you with open arms to the Linux lifestyle. And I want you to be well. I want you to be safe. I want you to share. I want you to like. I want you to subscribe. But most importantly, I want you to be awesome to one another. Have a good night.